The stars looked different here. Captain Jake Morrison stared out the window of the exploration ship New Horizon as it moved slowly toward the fourth planet in the Kepler 442 system. He had been in space for 15 years, but this mission felt different. The energy readings they picked up from Earth were unlike anything they had seen before. "Captain, we're getting closer to the planet," said Amy Chen from her seat at the communication station. She was young but smart, and Jake trusted her completely. "The energy signals are getting stronger." Dr. Lisa Kane looked up from her science station. She was excited about this mission. As the ship's xenobiologist, she had studied alien life for most of her career, but she had never seen anything alive. This planet might change that. "The atmosphere readings are perfect for life," she said. "Oxygen, water vapor, everything we need." Colonel Rick Stone stood near the back of the bridge. He was a big man with gray hair and many scars from the wars on Mars. He did not share the excitement of the others. "Remember, we don't know what's down there," he said. "Stay alert." Jake nodded. Stone was right to be careful. They were very far from Earth, and if something went wrong, help would not come for years. "Take us into orbit, Danny," he told the pilot. Danny Wright was the best pilot Jake had ever worked with. His hands moved smoothly across the controls as the ship entered orbit around the green and blue planet below. "Beautiful world," Danny said quietly. "Looks almost like Earth." The planet did look like Earth, but bigger. 3 large continents, covered with thick forests. 2 moons hung in the purple sky. Dr. Kane's instruments showed that the planet was full of life. "I'm reading large life forms," Kane said, her voice full of wonder. "Really large. Some of them are moving in groups." "How large?" Stone asked. Kane checked her readings again. 12 feet tall, maybe more. They're warm-blooded and they move fast. Jake felt a chill run down his back. 12 feet tall was bigger than any predator on Earth. "Can you tell what they are?" "Not from here. We need to get closer." Jake made his decision. "Prep the landing shuttle. Small team only. Me, Dr. Kane, Colonel Stone, and 2 security officers." An hour later, their shuttle broke through the clouds and flew over endless green forests. The trees were huge, some over 300 feet tall. Strange birds with 4 wings flew between the branches. Everything looked peaceful and beautiful. "There," Kane pointed to a clearing near a river. "That's where the largest energy readings are coming from." The shuttle landed softly in the clearing. Jake opened the door and stepped out into the alien air. It smelled like flowers and rain. The gravity was a little stronger than Earth, but not too bad. Beautiful sounds came from the forest around them. Kane immediately started setting up her equipment. The 2 security officers, Pete Collins and Helen Foster, took positions watching the tree line. Stone kept his hand near his weapon. "The readings are incredible," Kane said. "There are hundreds of large life forms in these forests, and they're smart. Look at this." She showed her scanner to Jake. "They're using tools." "What kind of tools?" Stone asked. Before Kane could answer, the forest went completely quiet. The birds stopped singing. The wind stopped blowing. Even the insects went silent. "That's not good," Stone whispered. He pulled out his weapon. Then they saw them, moving between the trees like shadows, but much too big to hide completely. 12 feet tall, covered in dark scales that changed color, like a chameleon. They moved on 2 legs but could drop to 4 when they wanted to run. Their heads were long and narrow, full of sharp teeth. Their eyes glowed yellow in the forest shadows. "My God," Kane whispered. "They're beautiful." Beautiful was not the word Jake would have used. Terrifying was better. There were at least 20 of them, moving in perfect coordination around the clearing. They were being hunted. The largest one stepped into the clearing. Its scales were darker than the others, covered with scars from many battles. It was clearly the leader. When it looked at Jake, he felt like prey for the first time in his life. Kane stepped forward with her hands raised. "I'm going to try to communicate," she said. "Kane, no," Stone called, but she was already walking toward the creature. The alien leader watched her approach. Its head tilted slightly like it was curious. Kane stopped 10 feet away and slowly reached for her translation device. The attack came without warning. The leader moved faster than anything that big should be able to move. Its claws, each one as long as a knife, slashed across Kane's chest. She screamed and fell backward. "Open fire!" Stone shouted. The security officers started shooting, but the creatures were already moving. They spread out and attacked from all sides. Pete Collins went down first, torn apart by claws and teeth. Helen Foster lasted longer, but 3 of the creatures surrounded her. Jake grabbed Kane and dragged her toward the shuttle. Blood was everywhere. Stone was fighting 2 of the creatures at once, using his military training to stay alive. "Get to the ship," he yelled. More creatures came out of the forest. Jake could see dozens of them now, maybe hundreds. They had walked into a trap. These things were not just animals. They were smart, organized, and they had been watching the humans since they landed. Jake got Kane into the shuttle and started the engines. Stone jumped in just as the creatures reached the ship. Danny was already in the pilot seat, his face pale with fear. "Go, go, go," Jake shouted. The shuttle lifted off, but the creatures were not finished. Several of them jumped onto the hull, their claws scraping against the metal. One of them smashed the window with its fist. Another tore off a piece of the engine. Danny fought to control the shuttle as it climbed toward orbit. "We're losing power," he said. "They damaged something important." The shuttle made it back to the New Horizon, but barely. As soon as they docked, alarms started going off. The ship's engines had been damaged too. Somehow the creatures had attacked the ship while the shuttle was gone. Jake looked at the main screen. The planet hung below them, green and beautiful, and deadly. Dr. Kane was alive but badly hurt. Pete Collins and Helen Foster were dead, and now they were trapped here with those things. Colonel Stone cleaned the blood off his weapon and looked at Jake. "What do we do now, Captain?" Jake stared at the planet for a long moment. Those creatures had ruled their world for millions of years. They were perfect predators, intelligent and deadly. They had probably never lost a fight in their entire species' history, but they had never fought humans before. "We survive," Jake said quietly, "and we show them what real apex predators look like." 3 days had passed since the attack. Captain Jake Morrison was dead. The creatures had somehow gotten onto the New Horizon during the shuttle mission and killed him along with 6 other crew members. Colonel Rick Stone was now in command of the 43 surviving humans. The ship hung in orbit around the deadly planet, but it was badly damaged. The engines were dead. The communications array was destroyed. They were trapped, and everyone knew it. Stone stood on the bridge looking at the green world below. Dr. Lisa Kane sat nearby, her chest wrapped in bandages from the creature attack. She was lucky to be alive, but she refused to rest. Amy Chen worked at her station, trying to repair the long-range scanners. "Report," Stone said. "The engines are completely dead," said Danny Wright. "Those things knew exactly what to hit. They're smarter than we thought." Kane looked up from her tablet. "I've been studying the attack patterns. The creatures that boarded our ship moved with perfect coordination. They had a plan. They knew our weak points." "How is that possible?" Amy asked. "We just got here." "They've been watching us since we arrived," Kane said. "Maybe longer. I think they detected our ship before we even entered orbit." Stone felt a cold fear in his stomach. If these creatures were that smart, the humans were in serious trouble. "What else do you know about them?" Kane showed him her tablet. "I managed to scan several of them during the attack. They have incredible senses. They can see heat like we see light. They can hear sounds we can't even make. And there's something else." "What?" "They can sense electrical fields. Every living thing makes tiny electrical signals. These creatures can track those signals from miles away. That's how they hunt." Amy stopped working and turned around. "You mean they can track us anywhere on the planet?" "Anywhere in the system," Kane said quietly. Stone thought about this information. It explained how the creatures had found their ship so easily. It also meant that hiding from them would be almost impossible. "What about weapons? How do we hurt them?" "Their scales are tough, but not impossible to penetrate. Our guns can hurt them if we hit them right, but they're fast and smart. They won't give us easy targets. Danny looked up from his control station. Colonel, I'm reading movement on the planet's surface. A lot of movement. Stone looked at the main screen. The sensors showed hundreds of heat signatures moving through the forest below. All of them were heading toward the spot where the shuttle had landed. They're gathering, Kane said. I think they're calling others to join them. How many others? Stone asked. Amy finally got the long-range scanners working. She ran a sweep of the planet and her face went pale. Colonel, you need to see this. The numbers appeared on the screen. Over 50,000 large heat signatures on this continent alone. Thousands more on the other continents. The entire planet was full of these creatures. We're outnumbered 1,000 to 1, Danny whispered. Stone stared at the numbers. In all his years of military service, he had never faced odds like this. But he had also never backed down from a fight. Then we better make sure we're smart about this. Over the next few days, the humans worked frantically to prepare for what was coming. Stone organized the crew into teams. Amy Chen and her communication experts worked on repairing the ship's systems. Danny Wright led a team to salvage weapons and supplies from the shuttle bay. Kane spent her time studying everything she could about the creatures. She watched recordings from the attack over and over, looking for weaknesses. Slowly, a picture began to form. They hunt in packs, she told Stone, usually 8 to 12 individuals. They have a strict social order with one leader. The leader makes all the decisions. What happens if you kill the leader? Stone asked. The pack falls apart, at least temporarily. But they regroup quickly and choose a new leader. Stone nodded. This was useful information. What about their senses? You said they can detect electrical fields. That's their greatest strength, but it might also be their weakness. Their brains are very sensitive to electrical interference. If we could create some kind of electrical disruption, Kane trailed off thinking. Stone could see an idea forming in her mind. The ship's power cells, she said suddenly. If we could overload them and create an electrical pulse, it might confuse their senses. Stone called Danny over. Can you make that work? Danny looked thoughtful. Maybe. The power cells have enough energy to create a big electrical field, but we'd only get one shot. After that, we'd be out of power. Then we better make it count. The humans worked for 2 more days, turning their damaged ship into a fortress. They welded metal plates over the windows. They set up firing positions in the corridors. They moved all their weapons and ammunition to key locations. Kane developed a plan to use the ship's medical supplies against the creatures. Many Earth chemicals were toxic to alien life forms. She created special bullets filled with concentrated toxins. Amy rigged the communication system to broadcast high-frequency sounds that might hurt the creature's sensitive hearing. Danny prepared the electrical pulse weapon that might save their lives. On the 7th day after the first attack, the creatures came. Stone watched from the bridge as thousands of heat signatures surrounded their crash site. The main screen showed the forest around them moving with alien shapes. They had landed the ship in a narrow canyon for protection, but now they were trapped. Here they come, Amy whispered. The first wave of creatures emerged from the forest. They moved in perfect formation like soldiers. Stone counted at least 200 in the first group. More were coming behind them. The largest creature Stone had ever seen stepped into view. It was covered in scars and stood almost 15 feet tall. This was clearly the leader of all the packs. When it roared, the sound echoed off the canyon walls like thunder. That's their war chief, Kane said. The one who planned all of this. Stone smiled grimly. He had fought war chiefs before. Then let's introduce ourselves properly. He opened the ship's external speakers and spoke to the creature army below. You want to hunt us? Come and try. But remember this day because it's the day you learn what real predators look like. The war chief roared again and raised one massive clawed hand. Every creature in the canyon charged toward the human ship at once. The battle for survival was about to begin. The first wave of creatures hit the ship like a storm. Colonel Rick Stone watched from the bridge as hundreds of the alien predators charged up the canyon walls toward their position. Their claws sparked against the metal hull as they climbed. "Now!" Stone shouted into his radio. Danny Wright activated the electrical pulse. The ship's remaining power cells overloaded and sent a massive wave of electricity through the hull. The creatures climbing on the ship screamed and fell backward, their sensitive nervous systems overloaded by the electrical shock. The pulse worked better than anyone had hoped. Dozens of creatures writhed on the ground, unable to control their movements. Their ability to sense electrical fields had become a weakness when faced with too much electricity at once. "It's working," Amy Chen called from her station. They're confused. They can't coordinate their attack, but the victory was temporary. The giant war chief roared orders from the back of the canyon. The creatures that were still able to fight regrouped quickly. They had learned from the first attack. Dr. Lisa Kane watched the alien leader through her binoculars. "It's adapting. Look how it's positioning the packs now. It's keeping them spread out so we can't hit them all at once." Stone saw what she meant. The war chief was dividing its forces into smaller groups. Instead of one massive charge, the creatures were now attacking from multiple directions. This leader had probably never lost a battle in its life, but it was learning from its first defeat. "Switch to chemical weapons," Stone ordered. The humans had prepared for this. Kane's toxic bullets were loaded into every weapon on the ship. When the second wave of creatures reached the hull, the humans opened fire with everything they had. The effect was immediate. The alien predators had never encountered earth toxins before. Creatures that could survive massive injuries from claws and teeth fell dead from tiny amounts of human medicine. Their healing abilities meant nothing against poisons their bodies had never seen. "The medical supplies are working," Kane reported. "Even small wounds are killing them if the toxin gets into their bloodstream." For the first time since landing on this planet, Stone felt hope. These creatures might be perfect, predators on their own world, but they had never faced anything like humans before. The battle continued for hours. Wave after wave of creatures charged the ship, and wave after wave fell to human weapons and tactics. Stone moved from position to position, coordinating the defense and encouraging his people. Amy had her sound weapons working perfectly. The high-frequency broadcasts hurt the creatures' sensitive hearing and made it hard for them to communicate. Danny used the ship's remaining power to create smaller electrical pulses that disrupted their senses. But the humans were learning too. Kane studied every attack, noting how the creatures moved and fought. "They always attack the same way," she told Stone during a brief pause in the fighting. "They rely on speed and coordination, but they don't adapt quickly to new situations." "What do you mean?" "Watch their leader. It keeps using the same tactics over and over. It doesn't know how to change its strategy when the old one stops working." Stone looked down at the war chief. The massive creature was indeed repeating the same attack patterns. It would roar, point with its claws, and send its packs charging forward. When they failed, it would roar louder and send more packs to do the same thing. They've never had to adapt, Stone realized. They've been the top predators for so long that they don't know how to change when something doesn't work. This was humanity's greatest advantage. Humans had always been forced to adapt to survive. They had fought each other for thousands of years, learning new tactics and strategies with each war. These creatures had never needed to evolve their fighting methods. Kane had another idea. Their social structure is rigid. Every pack has a leader and every leader follows the war chief. If we can disrupt that chain of command, Stone smiled, we make them fight each other instead of us. Amy worked on modifying her sound broadcasts. Instead of just making noise, she began copying the frequency patterns the creatures used to communicate. She couldn't speak their language, but she could create confusion. The next attack was different. As the creatures charged forward, Amy broadcast conflicting orders in their own frequency patterns. Pack leaders received signals that seemed to come from the war chief, but the orders contradicted each other. Chaos erupted in the alien ranks. Some packs turned left while others turned right. Some attacked while others retreated. For the first time in millions of years, the perfect coordination of the apex predators broke down completely. The war chief roared in fury, but its own communication system was working against it. The more orders it tried to give, the more confusion. Amy's broadcasts created. Stone saw his chance. All teams focus fire on the war chief, take out their leader. Every human weapon turned toward the massive creature at the back of the canyon. Bullets filled with earth toxins struck the war chief from all sides. It roared and charged toward the ship, but the poison was already working. The giant predator made it halfway up the canyon wall before it collapsed. Its body hit the ground with a sound like thunder. Every creature in the canyon stopped fighting and stared at their fallen leader. For several long moments, nobody moved. The war chief had been alive for over a century. It had led thousands of successful hunts. Its death was something the other creatures could not understand. Then the panic began. Without their leader, the packs scattered in all directions. Some tried to drag the war chief's body away. Others fought each other for the right to become the new leader. Most simply ran back into the forest. Within an hour, the canyon was empty except for the bodies of dead creatures. The humans had won their first real victory. Stone stood on the bridge looking out at the battlefield. Over 300 alien predators lay dead in the canyon. For the first time in their species' history, they had been completely defeated by another predator. "How many did we lose?" he asked. 5 wounded, none dead, Amy reported. "We actually won without losing anyone." Kane was studying her readings. "This is going to change everything. The chemical signals they use for communication are spreading. The news of their defeat across the continent. Every pack for hundreds of miles will know what happened here." "Will they attack again?" Danny asked. Stone looked at the forest around them. He could see heat signatures moving in the distance, but they were moving away from the canyon, not toward it. "They will," he said, "but not the same way. We've taught them that their old methods don't work. They'll have to learn new ones." Kane nodded. "The question is whether they can learn fast enough. They've had millions of years to perfect their hunting techniques. We've had 7 days to learn how to kill them." Stone checked his weapons and ammunition. The humans had used a lot of their supplies in this battle, but they had proven something important. These creatures could be beaten. "Then, we better keep teaching them," he said, "because class is just getting started." 6 months had passed since the first battle. The humans were no longer trapped in their ship. Colonel Rick Stone looked out from their new base, built into the canyon walls around the crashed ship. What had started as a desperate fight for survival had become something much bigger. The humans now called themselves the Pack. It was Danny Wright who had suggested the name after their third major victory. "If we're going to hunt them," he had said, "we should think like hunters." Dr. Lisa Kane finished her daily report and handed it to Stone. The numbers told an incredible story. In 6 months, they had killed over 8,000 of the creatures. The alien population on this continent had dropped by almost 20%. "Their breeding grounds are completely abandoned," Kane reported. "The packs are avoiding their traditional territories. Some groups are even fighting each other for new hunting areas." Stone nodded. The humans had learned to attack the creatures where they were weakest. Instead of waiting for the aliens to come to them, Stone had organized hunting parties that struck at breeding sites, food sources, and territory boundaries. Amy Chen had become a master of the creature's communication system. She could now speak their language well enough to send false messages between packs. Her favorite trick was to convince 2 different groups that the other had invaded their territory. "The northern packs are at war with the eastern packs," Amy reported. "They've been fighting for 3 days. Neither side knows we started it." Danny had transformed from a pilot into something like a scout. He knew the forest better than anyone and could track creature movements from miles away. He had also become their best hunter, personally killing over 200 of the aliens. "There's a large pack moving toward the southern valley," Danny said. "About 40 individuals. They're heading for the old breeding grounds." Stone studied the map. The southern valley was where they had set their biggest trap yet. It looked like an abandoned human camp, complete with fake heat signatures to attract the creatures. In reality, it was surrounded by explosive devices and poison gas dispensers. "How long until they reach it?" Stone asked. 2 hours, maybe 3. Stone smiled. The creatures still thought like they had for millions of years. They saw what looked like easy prey and could not resist attacking. They had not yet learned that humans fought wars differently than any enemy they had faced before. Kane had been working on her most dangerous project yet. She had dissected hundreds of dead creatures and learned everything about their biology. Now she was creating targeted diseases that would only affect the alien species. The biological weapon is almost ready, she told Stone privately. Once we release it into their water supply, it will spread throughout their entire population. Stone felt uncomfortable with the idea of biological warfare, but he pushed the feeling aside. These creatures had started this war by killing his friends. They had shown no mercy, and they would receive none. The trap in the southern valley worked perfectly. The pack of 40 creatures walked into what they thought was an abandoned human camp. The explosions could be heard for miles. When the smoke cleared, not a single alien was left alive. But something unexpected happened after that victory. Danny reported strange movements in the forest. Instead of scattering like usual, the remaining creatures were gathering in larger and larger groups. There's something different about them, he told Stone. They're not acting like the old packs. They're organizing differently. Kane confirmed Danny's observations. Their communication patterns have changed. Instead of the rigid pack structure, they're forming what looks like military units. Stone felt a chill. The creatures were finally adapting to human tactics. After millions of years of evolutionary stagnation, they were learning to change. The new alien strategy became clear a week later. Instead of small pack attacks, they began coordinating massive assaults involving hundreds of individuals. They had learned to use human tactics against the humans, but they had learned too late. Stone had been planning his biggest operation yet. Intelligence gathered by Danny and Amy had revealed the location of the creature's most important site, the Sioux, ancient breeding cave where their species had first evolved. It's not just a breeding ground, Kane explained. It's their cultural center. Every pack sends representatives there during mating season. If we can destroy it, we break their spirit completely, Stone finished. The mission required their best people. Stone led the team personally along with Danny, Amy, and 6 other volunteers. They carried enough explosives to bring down the entire cave system. The journey took 3 days through hostile territory. The creatures had learned to set ambushes, but Danny's scouting skills kept them ahead of their pursuers. They reached the sacred cave just as the sun was setting on their 3rd day. The sight that greeted them was incredible. The cave opening was over 100 feet wide and decorated with ancient carvings. Hundreds of creatures were gathered inside for some kind of ceremony. It's their mating season, Kane whispered. Every important individual from every pack is in that cave. Stone looked at the massive gathering of alien predators. In that one cave were probably the leaders and strongest members of the species. Destroying them would cripple the creature's ability to organize and fight back. But as they prepared their explosives, something unexpected happened. A single figure emerged from the cave. It was larger than any creature they had seen before, covered in scars that spoke of countless battles. This was clearly the supreme leader of the entire species. The ancient creature looked directly at Stone and spoke in perfect human language. "So you are the new apex predators," it said in a voice like grinding stone. "I have lived for 3 centuries. I have seen empires rise and fall, but I have never seen anything like you." Stone raised his weapon, but the creature held up one massive clawed hand. "I do not come to fight. I come to understand. You have killed thousands of my people. You have destroyed territories we have held for millions of years. How is this possible?" Stone kept his weapon aimed at the creature's heart. "Because we adapt. You've been the same for millions of years. We change every day." The ancient leader nodded slowly. "Yes. We grew too confident in our perfection. We forgot that evolution never stops." It looked back at the cave full of its people. "What happens now?" "Now you learn what it means to be prey," Stone said. The creature's eyes flashed, with something that might have been respect. "Then teach us well, apex predator. We have much to learn." Stone pressed the detonator. The explosives tore through the ancient cave system, bringing down millions of tons of rock. The roar of the collapse echoed across the continent like the death cry of a species. When the dust settled, The sacred cave was gone. With it died the leadership of the creature species and any hope they had of organizing effective resistance. The war was not over, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. Humanity had claimed its place as the apex predators of this world. 2 years had passed since the destruction of the sacred cave. Colonel Rick Stone stood on a hill overlooking the forest that had once been full of deadly predators. Now it was quiet. Too quiet. The humans had won their war. But the victory felt different than Stone had expected. Dr. Lisa Kane's biological weapon had worked better than anyone hoped. The disease had spread through the remaining creature population like wildfire. Within 6 months, it had reached every continent on the planet. Stone looked at his final report. The numbers were hard to believe, even for him. From millions of creatures 2 years ago, fewer than 100 remained alive on the entire planet. The species that had ruled this world for millions of years was almost extinct. The last group is in the northern mountains, Danny Wright reported. He was thinner now, scarred from dozens of battles. 2 years of constant hunting had changed all of them. Maybe 30 individuals, they're hiding in the deep caves. Amy Chen looked up from her communication equipment. She had spent months learning to track the creatures' desperate calls for help, calls that would never be answered because there was no one left to answer them. They stopped trying to communicate 3 days ago, she said quietly. I think they know it's over. Dr. Kane sat alone at her research station. She had become the humans' expert on extinction. Her biological weapons had been too successful. Even she had not expected them to work so completely. The ecosystem is already changing, she told Stone. Without the creatures to control them, other species are spreading rapidly. In 50 years, this planet will look completely different. Stone nodded. That was what happened when apex predators disappeared. The entire balance of nature shifted. He had seen it happen on Earth when humans drove wolves extinct in some areas. Deer populations exploded, forests were eaten bare, and everything changed. But there was something else bothering him. The last group of creatures in the mountains was not trying to fight anymore. They were not raiding human settlements or attacking hunting parties. They were just hiding, waiting to die. Maybe we should let them live, Amy said suddenly. The last few, I mean. What harm could 30 creatures do? Stone looked at his team. They were all thinking the same thing, but nobody wanted to say it out loud. They had committed genocide. They had wiped out an entire intelligent species. They killed Jake and the others, Danny said, but his voice lacked conviction. They started this war. Did they? Kane asked quietly. Or did we start it by invading their territory? Stone remembered the first meeting with the creatures. Dr. Kane had tried to communicate peacefully, but the aliens had attacked without warning, killing 3 humans in seconds. That was how this war began. Yet now he wondered if the creatures had been defending their world from what they saw as invaders. Humans had done the same thing many times in their history when strangers arrived on their land. Before Stone could decide what to do about the last creatures, the choice was taken away from him. A new signal appeared on Amy's communication system. It was not from the planet, it was from space. Ship approaching from Earth, Amy announced. It's the rescue vessel. They're finally here. Stone felt mixed emotions. Rescue meant they could leave this world and return to human civilization, but it also meant explaining what they had done here. 3 days later, the rescue ship Meridian landed in the same canyon where the war had begun. Captain Sandra Wells stepped out with her crew, expecting to find desperate survivors. Instead, she found hardened warriors living in a fortress built from alien bones. Colonel Stone? She asked uncertainly. The man in front of her looked nothing, like the military officer described in the mission files. Captain Wells, Stone replied. Welcome to our new world. Sandra looked around at the human settlement. Gardens grew where alien territory markers used to stand. Human children played in areas that had once been hunting grounds for deadly predators. The transformation was complete. Where are the hostile aliens we were warned about? Sandra asked. Dead, Stone said simply. All of them. Well, almost all. Sandra stared at him. All of them? The report said there were millions. There were. We killed them. It took Sandra and her crew 3 days to understand what had happened on this planet. They interviewed every survivor, studied Kane's research, and examined the evidence of the 2-year war. The reaction from Earth was immediate. Some called the survivors heroes who had overcome impossible odds. Others called them monsters who had committed genocide against an intelligent species. What about the last group? Sandra asked Stone on their final day on the planet. The 30 in the mountains? Stone had been thinking about that question for days. The creatures posed no threat to anyone now. They were the last of their kind, hiding in caves and waiting to die. We leave them alone, he decided. They've suffered enough. But when Danny's final scouting mission returned from the mountains, he brought unexpected news. The last group of creatures was already dead. They had not been killed by humans or disease. They had simply stopped eating and died of sadness. Kane examined the bodies and confirmed what everyone suspected. The creatures had died of despair. When their species was reduced to just a few dozen individuals, they had lost the will to live. They were social creatures, Kane explained. Their entire identity was based on being part of a dominant species. When that was taken away, they couldn't adapt. The last apex predator on the planet had died 3 days before the rescue ship arrived. As the Meridian prepared to leave the planet, Stone took one final walk through the forest. Birds sang in the trees. Small animals ran freely through the undergrowth. Without the creatures to hunt them, life was flourishing. But something felt wrong. This planet had been ruled by apex predators for millions of years. Now there were none. The humans were leaving, taking their role as the new apex predators with them. Stone realized that they had not just killed a species. They had broken a chain that stretched back to the beginning of life on this world. For better or worse, they had changed the course of evolution on an entire planet. Captain Wells found him standing by the memorial they had built for Jake Morrison and the other humans who died in the first attack. "Ready to go home, Colonel?" she asked. Stone looked at the peaceful forest one last time. In the distance, he could hear the sounds of animals that no longer feared being hunted. The creatures were gone, but life would continue. "Yes," he said finally. "But remember this place, Captain. Remember what we learned here." What did we learn? Stone thought about the war, the deaths, and the empty mountains where the last creatures had died alone. "We learned that there can only be one apex predator," he said. "And we learned that apex predators don't just hunt their prey. They hunt everything that threatens their position at the top." As the Meridian lifted off from the planet, Stone looked down at the world they were leaving behind. It was beautiful and peaceful, and forever changed. Humanity had won its first interstellar war, but victory had come at a price that would haunt them as they spread across the galaxy. They had become the apex predators of space itself, and apex predators, Stone now knew, were always alone at the top.